Who do you support?
Patrick's Athletic.
Have you been a Pats fan all your life?
I have, yeah.
And do you go to all the matches?
I used to, but not as much as I used to go, you know.
Who is your favourite Pats player?
The fella in the green and white shirt.
Do you think it's important for Irish people to support our own soccer league?
I do, yeah. I don't believe in all that, like the Premier League and all, you know. Like, I follow Man United. We should be following our own side, yeah? Then, they say, oh, we don't want the Queen over here. But yet they follow the Queen's football teams. So I just think they're all hypocrites, But it should be all League of Ireland all the way. And, of course, Celtic all the way.
Hello and welcome to the latest edition of Get Up the Yard. I'm Gunny, your MC Source, and this week I'm joined by Frank and Luxie, and we're going to be discussing Ireland's relationship with the Premier League and its own league. So, gentlemen, good morning to you, or afternoon to you. This is something that sort of bothered me. I was in Mayo in May, and I watched Liverpool in the Champions League final, and I was happy Liverpool won, being a lifelong Liverpool supporter, I suppose. But it did perturb me slightly when you read the crisis of the League of Ireland, or the crisis that the League of Ireland's in, and then you see everybody supporting Liverpool and in their Liverpool jerseys and singing Fields of Anfield Road and You'll Never Walk Alone and all this kind of stuff. And I think the question I really want to ask, and I'll just throw it out there, is it about time that Irish people started getting behind the League of Ireland as opposed to, which needs all the support it can get, as opposed to the uber cash rich Premier League, which is now owned by foreign owners, and it's got, clubs are more like conglomerates. They're not clubs anymore, they're businesses. Man City's owned by a country, Liverpool's owned by people from New England, the Glazers own Man United and such. So is it time that we should be getting behind our own league and showing support and love to our own league? I'll throw that out there.
That's it's not so much a straightforward question to answer. Well, like in my own personal circumstance, I wasn't born in Ireland. I wasn't raised here, so I never had a local team as such on my doorstep. Well, definitely not an Irish team because I didn't grow up here. So I'm not sure I'm best placed to answer that question as to why I personally don't support a League of Ireland team. I support Man United.
Yeah, but you live in Ireland and you support the Irish football team.
I do, and in fairness, I lived in Kilmaine for 5 years, and I went to see my local team once. No, twice. I was there twice, which is absolutely nothing. It's an irrelevant attendance record if you want to look at it that way. And I went, and to be honest, I went because I was encouraged to do so by our senior analyst on this podcast, and I was told tickets were cheap enough. It's just down the road. We can have a few beers, and that was enough for me to go. But in all honesty, would I have gone by myself just to enjoy the experience of watching football? No, probably not, because what I'm led to believe, and from what I've seen in the League of Ireland, it's not a very good standard. It's Route 1 football. I don't necessarily want to see that week in, week out, but I do know of people, or I have heard of people, someone that I know personally, that are fanatical about their local team or about an Irish football team. I know of two people that will go. One is my girlfriend's colleague. He goes to all the home and away matches.
What team is that?
Bows. He's a massive Bows fan.
Brilliant.
He will travel up and down the country, and he will support them to the hilt. And then a fellow I used to work with, he's a Shells fan, and he goes to all the home games. He's also, ironically, a massive United fan, but he's also a big fan of Shells. So they do exist. As to what I don't, I think for me it's just a question of upbringing. I didn't have that local association, but
right, fair enough.
Yeah, but just because I moved here permanently later on in life doesn't necessarily. I don't see that imposition or obligation on me as a fan of football to support a local team.
It's just when you said about the
Right.
when you said about the quality of the league, though, that's an interesting point.
It is, though. It is. I think it's a salient point, and it's a prevailing factor for most people's attitude towards the League of Ireland.
Okay, but what I would argue there is that how many times do you complain about the standard of the Premier League, and you say it's a crap standard, it's not good enough, all the money, it's a rubbish standard.
No, I've never said
La Liga is brilliant. You have.
I haven't said that.
It's well, that's from what I've heard.
I'll tell you right now, you've misheard incorrectly.
So you think the Premier League's a very, very high standard, the whole league?
Of course it is. Oh, absolutely is. It's a very high standard. If you look at the footballers that play in the Premier League, there's a reason why they're getting paid the money they are, and I know there's other factors that contribute to that. But they are technically brilliant footballers, and I think you'd be doing a disservice to compare the standard of the Premier League.
So you're saying if the Premier League's full of brilliant, okay, fair enough. Well, all right, fair enough. Look, just want to ask Frank. He's very silent there. He was brought up in Ireland and does have a local team and has bemoaned the standard of the Premier League on several occasions. Frank, you're very silent in this one. So, what is your take on how supporting the League of Ireland or supporting a foreign team over your local side?
Well, I suppose the League of Ireland has a couple of big challenges, and I know we've talked about this before. Is the big one is it has to compete with other sports such as GAA, for example. So. Now, and I know we kind of joked about this during the week and things like that, but for the most part, people, in terms of how they get into sport or get into teams, I think we'd all agree that there's a huge alignment between predominantly what team your father support or what sport your father supports, and then, or whoever the kind of, role model in your life is or the big part of your life is, but they support and the alignment to that. So, when I was kind of being brought to sporting events when I was growing up, it was predominantly Dublin GAA matches and occasionally Irish international matches, but predominantly GAA matches. So from quite a young age, I wasn't really introduced to League of Ireland football. And by the time you get to a point where you can actually be in a position to make your own decisions, even financially, you're probably about 16, 17. And by that time, you probably have other interests. And if it's not already bred into you by that age, it's probably quite difficult to get into it and become aligned and become passionate about a team to the point where you want to go on a kind of Friday night or because with our climate over here as well, it's not ideal unless you have a real passion for a team to be, as Luxie said, travelling up and down the country or standing there on a miserable.
Yeah, but people will travel over to England. I mean, I've done it. And
this is this kind of the second point I was going to make.
Right,
Sonny, is that the biggest issue for me about the League of Ireland, and you touched on it there. Oh, the Premier League, is it overrated? You bemoan the quality of it. Yeah, I do think it's overrated. But what I would say is, and this is why it's a much bigger league than La Liga and Serie A, because it's marketed brilliantly. And the big problem I have with the League of Ireland is that it's marketed so poorly. Like, I don't even know. Like, I follow certain clubs on Instagram and things like that. I don't really get notifications about when the next game is. The only time I know when the next match really is, now, of course, the onus could be on me to go and look for that. But, if you're looking to build a fan base, you need to kind of ram it down their face. Is if I'm going past, on the 40 bus and you pass that sign over the stadium that says the next game is. Like, we've all lived in Ireland. You take yourself, Donny, you lived in Ireland for a long time. You were very, very heavily active on social media. You always have been since I've kind of known you. And we're the kind of target group you would imagine for League of Ireland. So if they were to put money behind a post and sponsor it, you would say people that have interacted with football type posts are in this demographic. Let's push features onto them. I can't remember ever getting a sponsored post from a League of Ireland team. to
Probably
say,
can't afford it.
sorry?
Probably can't afford it.
Like, well then how are you going to get attendance up if no one knows you're playing?
No, well, what I would argue there, though, on Twitter, the League of Ireland is very, very active. Look, I mean, yeah, I take your point there, but I don't think that's, and I'm not wanting to sound too argumentative here, but let's be honest, if you're really arsed in supporting, you could go on Twitter, you could go on the League of Ireland website, you could go on the Pat's website, and you could find out, it's going to be on a Friday night, they're all going to be playing home or away. I mean, I do take your point, it's poorly marketed, but I think there's an attitude there, there's an attitude problem as well. I mean, RTE, the national broadcaster, right, where you all pay your TV license money for in the Republic of Ireland, they had they had a campaign for, all the stuff we're showing. And they had boxing, they showed Katie Taylor, I believe, they showed all that, which is fantastic. And the only bit of club football they showed was Liverpool. I think in the match against Barcelona, they showed a snippet. And there wasn't one League of Ireland team mentioned. That's a national broadcaster. So I do think there's an attitude there towards the League of Ireland. And I do think there's a snobbery to it.
Would that not hurt attendances even more?
Arguably it could. But if there's a game on in, let's say, Galway United, and people couldn't get over to Galway for whatever reason on a Friday night because of work and stuff, because I think it's about a 3-hour drive, it'd be handy for that. I know there's a streaming service, but it's just, I think it's just the attitude, I think is the point I'm getting at. I know.
I think it's something that football fans in England are also guilty of. Like, there's a lot more local football teams in England, obviously, as opposed to Ireland. But a lot of English football supporters would still rather support or choose to support a team in the Premier League over the local team down the road, even if they're League 1, League 2, League 3. You'll still find the vast majority will support a Premier League team. It's something that football is globally.
See Wimbledon, massive success story. I couldn't get tickets. They were playing Kings Meadow in Kingston, and they've had to knock down the old Greyhound Stadium in Wimbledon, and actually they've had to knock it down to rebuild a football stadium. I think with 10,000 capacity, with an opportunity to go to 20,000 in Plough Lane. I couldn't get a ticket when they were in Kings Meadow because they were absolutely bursting at the seams. I know it was like something out of the Victorian times, and I didn't go back again. I said, I'll wait until you build your stadium, because the fan support for AFC Wimbledon was massive. So no, it's not always like that. And Fulham, I know there are certain examples whereby local teams are successful, but if you look at it in a general sense, look at the grander scheme of things. There's a commonality between people in general wanting to support the big team, a team they like. Like, there's a variety of reasons why you support Liverpool. There's a variety of reasons why Frank. I'll throw it there at it and say he always supported Man City, even though not anyone would believe that. And there's a reason why I support Man United. I was born and raised in Luxembourg. My dad's a West Ham fan. I conceivably, most likely, I should be supporting West Ham. Or then people will ask the question, why should I be supporting an English team? I'm Irish, and that's probably the question that you're asking. Why do we support English teams in the vast majority, as opposed to a team from Germany or Spain or France or any other team in the world? But there's an important point as to why we do, and there's heavy cultural links to England, Donny. You look at all the Irish people that moved to Liverpool, that moved to Manchester. But that's gone, though.
Between the countries, though.
But that's gone. There used to be a tricolour that used to fly over Old Trafford in the early 90s. I'm not sure if you're aware of that, but there was. I'm pretty sure that. I haven't seen that. That's gone.
It's embraced into Irish culture. So, like, once that goes, as I said, it's still passed down. So, the likelihood is that people who are big Man United fans, because of that time, have passed that down to their children, and it will continue to be passed on. It's just a legacy thing there.
Yeah, but
that's the big problem with the League of Ireland, is that, there's not a legacy thing where it's handed down from generation to generation, where, if you look at, as I said, what it competes with, like, you can say, there's an ignorance. Like, a lot of GAA people would love the Premier League, but if they had a choice between, watching the big game on TV today, or like, if you go into the majority of pubs in Ireland today, it'll be Kilkenny v Tip there'll be 80,000 in Croke Park, irrespective of who was playing in the Premier League. So it's not a case of, it's a laziness attitude or that Irish people don't have a hunger for homegrown content. What you have to accept is that there has to be a quality element of that content.
Well, yeah, but I mean, how do you expect something to get better if you don't nurture it, if you don't invest in it? That's the attitude.
But it's an absolute chicken and egg scenario. But Donny, primarily the onus of that is on the organisations to invest in first. And it's kind of, if you build it, they'll come type thing. Like, why should people invest in it if it's barely believed that at a kind of, an association level in Ireland?
Yeah, but I mean, I just think there's a massive contradiction here. I mean, people are going on and, they want the Irish team to do well. They bemoan players not coming through, but yet they're not going to go out and support their local League of Ireland club. They'd rather...
The young players that come through are going to be cherry picked and sent off to England.
But the reason for that is because there isn't any. I mean, because there's no investment in the League of Ireland from people, and I do get like the FAI running the League of Ireland has to stop because they've shown utter contempt for the League of Ireland, and I'm not going to get bogged down in the FAI discussion. They need to set up their own committee and they need to run themselves, and there have been proposals for that, such as an All Ireland league. But I do think it's a little bit of... I do think it's a massive contradiction in culture. I mean, in Ireland, we slag off the Brits. We laugh at them when you go out of the World Cup, all this kind of stuff. But, yeah...
That is changing though, Donny. That attitude has changed.
That is slightly changed. Well, I mean, I haven't watched a major tournament in Ireland for a number of years, so I'll take it,
There's as much hatred and there has been for the English national team in England, against their own team than there is in Ireland. So that has been more.
That's a cultural change here, where although that bid was subsided, obviously with the team doing really, really well in the World Cup just gone last year, getting to the semi-finals and having a humble attitude and not having mega superstars.
There was a large part of England. In England, where there was resentment towards the national team as well, and it's only since UK has come in.
Yeah, but that doesn't. That shouldn't affect the Irish psyche in Ireland towards the England team as well, like what the English are doing. I mean, it just seems a bit crazy. Like they would, some of the stuff I've seen on social media as well towards English players and all that kind of stuff, and against Britain, and then all of a sudden, like I've had discussions with people, mad Man United fans, not in our circle of friends, calling me, what was it, a Brit loving, beginning with C, C word, a Brit loving C word, and kicked me off their Facebook page because he was so pro Wayne Rooney, but like he hated England. And I was like,
that's bizarre.
Yeah, but that's what you're up against. You know what I mean? I'm thinking,
I know, but they're probably in the minority though, Donny.
Well, probably are now. But I just think it's crazy that if I lived in Ireland, I don't live in Ireland, economical reasons, blah, 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 blah. But if it did, I mean, I don't really follow. I haven't watched one Premier League match since it started. I know we're only in the second league. I haven't watched Match of the Day. I'm not really that invested in it. I'm more into the Ireland football team. But I'd like to think if I lived in, having come to this realisation, if I lived in Ireland, I'd be going to as many Pats games as I could.
But
this couldn't have just hit you now. Like, I mean, like this is something you lived in, Ireland for 28 years. You probably went to a handful of League of Ireland games.
I did not see Ireland matches. Yeah,
you've probably been to more Liverpool games than you have Pats games.
Don't know actually.
Well, but the fact that one was 10 minutes away in a bus and one thing.
Yeah.
I'm conscious of, as I said, not nailing anyone to the cross on it. But as I said, it's easy to say, if I was in that scenario, I'd do this. You were in that scenario and you didn't, and there had to be a reason for that.
Well, no, I mean, but yeah, that was
Park for a period, didn't you?
I went to Dalymount Park. I went to match in Dalymount Park. I went to the corner. Saw Champions League football there against TNS. Yeah,
but you wouldn't be a regular supporter you've never been a regular supporter of any League of Ireland team.
The reason, what I would say to that actually that I used to work in a bookie and you couldn't get a Friday night off, especially around the summertime. And the League of Ireland was a summer league at the time.
Yeah, but
So
sure, you're probably
I will.
up any other Friday night anyway, though.
No, genuinely, in a bookies trying to get all the Liverpool matches I used to go to were all Champions League matches because I couldn't get a weekend off. I couldn't go to a Premier League match. I think I went to one Premier League match over a number of years because I couldn't get a weekend off because I was
outside of that. Like, there's nobody in our group, yourself included, probably bar one guy who used to be a big Shell supporter, and probably Dave, who kind of peters in and out of that scenario. There's never been any League of Ireland discussions in our group, fans. I don't think any of us have ever bought a replica jersey.
No.
I could be wrong.
I mean, I'm not. Listen, I'm not turning around and saying like, oh, shame on all of you because I've been in that situation. I know it, but haven't come out of it.
Well, what I'm saying is, what we accept is we are clearly a country that loves football. So, like, I think it's more a point of that, like Irish people can't consume enough sport, and football is a huge part of that. And I genuinely believe, like, when you look at clubs like, local clubs and things like that, but there's a huge support for them. But I just genuinely think there's a huge problem with how the League of Ireland is run, and that's the crux of the matter. Why people go elsewhere for their content.
But I do think there's a window. I do think there's a window now because there's a realization. There's a mass realization. I mean, like the FAI is going to go under significant, huge changes now because it has to, because the rug's being pulled back, and I think with the League of Ireland as well, there is a massive call, and I do think there is a resurgence of sorts with the League of Ireland, having followed it. Like some matches have been sold out. Air Sport are getting behind it now, which is really good, and there's calls for an All-Ireland League. But I do, you're on about the love football. I think, and from an observation from living outside the tent looking in, as opposed to living in it and looking out, I do think there is a sort of a lack of patience with the League of Ireland. People are saying that the quality is poor. Look, see, you only said it last week. You don't enjoy it, and you said it today. You don't enjoy the quality of the League of Ireland. How's it going to get better? People don't invest in it. I mean, people should make a collective decision on it and go, look, we should get...
The first thing you have to do then is initiatives, Donny. Like, you need to
but it's like stagnation on both sides, Frank. It's like one side's looking at the other going, all right, you're going to do something. The other side's looking at the other side going, what are you going to do something? And nothing gets done.
The onus is on the organisers, Donny, to, as I said, like, if what initiatives have the League of Ireland done? Okay, fair enough. They had a decent marketing gimmick with the greatest league in the world. They changed it to a summer league and things like that. Which I'd imagine hurt attendances, with people being away and things like that. But like, I don't know of any kind of like initiatives that they run where they say, right, that, kids accompanied by an adult come in free. And at least, right, you get attendances up that way and you start building affiliation.
That's the case already, Frank.
What?
Kids go free to League of Ireland matches.
No, they don't.
As far as I know, they do. The last Pats match I was at, I was told, I was informed.
1989.
No, it was only 3 years ago now. That's still long enough. But I asked and I was told kids are allowed in free.
No, generally adult tickets are, I think, €15. And
yeah,
€15. That's like, sure, that's less than 2 pints now in a bar. I mean,
it's not a question of money.
I just think it's a question of being asked, quite frankly.
No, it's not a question of being arsed.
It is a question of being arsed.
It's not. If someone is trying to sell you a product, which football is and the League of Ireland is, there has to be a reason for you to want to invest it. And it's not. And I don't think it can be solely based on patriotic reasons.
People would rather sit in a pub watching Burnley against Southampton, right, getting pissed in front of a telly in a pub in Dublin, than going down and watching a League of Ireland game against Pats and Bows.
Yeah, but my point is still salient, Tony. There has to, it's a product. There has to be a reason for you to want to invest in it.
But there has to be.
It's not only based on it's the local team, and I wouldn't agree with that.
But it's not going to happen if people just sit in their hands and do nothing about it and say, well, the onus is on you, and the other side goes, well, the onus is on you. Like, there has to be action,
that question of onus is bizarre. It's when it comes down to Donny, it's sport. It's something I invest in when I have the time or when I choose
club.
to do so. It's not a full-time obligation. It's not a
No,
full-time
but it's
obligation.
club. But it's a club. But it's a club. It's a football club. It's a club. A club is something that you invest in, you spend time in, you show love for, and you go out of your way for it. Now that's what it used to be in England. Now they're not clubs anymore. They are businesses. They are very, very, very huge businesses, and I just think that it's just I don't know. As I said, I saw it down in Mayo, and I see these guys wearing Liverpool top, and I was in that situation. I used to do it. Not Liverpool anymore, and it was just before the summer. It was on telly, and I had a Friday off.
I was out on Friday night, and they had the Dundalk and UCD match on one telly, and they had Fulham and Huddersfield match on the other telly. Now I know there's complete difference of standards, but I think the Dundalk UCD match finished 7-0 or something like that. It was.
Yeah, UCD are the whipping boys. They lost 10-1 to Bows on Friday.
It was farcical. And, again, I think there's another team, Finn Harps, are in this kind of similar position where, the Dundalk are kind of running away with the league. There's a little bit of a chasing pack with Rovers, maybe kind of.
Yeah, well, Dundalk have American investment. They have outside investment, which will probably stop now, and they are losing. Yeah, I mean, there is a disparity, there is an unbalance there in the league. I get that. But to be fair, in the women's football team, America hammered Thailand, what was it, 11-0 or 10-0, and, people were going, it's still a great competition. So that does happen.
No, people weren't. There were some people that said that's utter rubbish.
Well, yeah, there was half, but there's some people saying, no, it's still a great. But, that's going to happen. Hammerings are going to happen in football. UCD, I think, lost a lot of their players. They're students at the end of the day. I get it.
But Donny, look, here's an example for you, and it's an obvious example. Remember, well, it came before my time anyway, and our time. Remember the days, I can't actually say it because we don't remember, but years gone by when people used to go do their shopping, where did they go? They went up to the town, to the local shops. What happened when supermarkets came along? When these big, massive shopping centres came along, where did they go? They obviously went to a shopping centre because the products they were selling in supermarkets were much better. They were much more enticing. They were much more appealing. It was better marketed. The experience of doing your shopping was a better experience if you were in an environment where you had loads of things that appealed to you. And that's what the Premier League is to the majority of people. That's what La Liga is. That's what all the major football leagues are. The local town or the local football shop can't compete with that. Is that a problem? Yes, it is to an extent, but times change, Donny. What I'm trying to say is, and it's directly what Frank has said, is there has to be a reason for you to distract yourself, for you to say, right, I am going to look at that, or I am going to take a bit of my time to invest in that. The League of Ireland and the football that's on isn't there. It's not a question of, I think they're shit, they're not good enough for me. It's not a question of disdain or condescension towards the League of Ireland. At the moment, there isn't a palpable reason or tangible reason for the majority of people to say, yes, I'm going to do this as opposed to that. It just isn't there at the moment. I
do think there is a condescending attitude towards the League of Ireland. I mean, the own national broadcaster, RT, has abandoned it now. Air Sports has picked up the mantle on that. But I do think there is a sort of snobbish attitude towards the League of Ireland because people will generally just turn around and go, that's shite, not watching that.
Well, what I'm saying, Tony, is, right, what it appears to me is that what you're saying is that Irish people should spend their hard-earned money sitting through shite for 4 or 5 years till the league gets better, and that's exactly what the FAI wants to happen.
No, that's a very negative spin on what I'm trying to say, Frank. That's a very sort of dystopian attitude.
In fairness to Donny, we're doing that already by going to the Ireland matches.
Why? Yeah, but I just think there's a whole negative. Right, first of all, the Ireland match, just to address your point first of all, Matt, Frank, saying we should 4 or 5 years of shite. I mean, it's so okay if you think it's shite, fair enough. But how do you expect it to get better if you don't invest in it? If people don't invest time, hard-earned money, what, €15 for a ticket? That's 2 pints. That's not. I wouldn't even get you 2 pints at Temple Bar. €15 for a man or a woman, sorry, an adult, Jesus, for an adult to go and sit through a League of Ireland match for about 2 hours at a time. I mean, how do we expect it to get better if we're not investing in it? That's ridiculous.
Roll that out to a family, Donny, and it becomes very expensive in terms of the price and in terms of, whether it's transport, parking, match programs.
But if people get onto the clubs and say, look,
sausages and things like that, you're talking about
that's £100.
Like it's not far off it, like, you know what I mean?
But okay, but none of you guys have kids. Looks, you said it. You live down the road in Kilmainham. You could have nipped down. I think you saw them. What was it, 3 times or once?
Twice.
You saw them. You just had to argue with me, didn't you? You saw them twice. Like,
what I would say to that point is how aware, like, look, see, you're kind of regular on social media. How aware were you when Pat's matches were on?
Do you want the honest truth?
Yeah.
If the window was open and I heard cheering, I would say to Dave the odd time, there must be a Pat's match on. He'd go, yeah, there is.
Yeah, but that shows that's a lack of interest. But I mean, come on, that's a lack of interest. If you want to find when a Pat's match is on, you could just go on the internet. You could just go on the internet. You go on Twitter. Come on.
Right. If you and I just want to make a point here, right? Liverpool and Man United, you wouldn't have to advertise their matches, and people would actively go out and find when they're on and watch them, right?
Yeah.
Why do you think they'll advertise them then?
Well, look, I get it. It's like, why would you advertise Guinness? Everyone would come to Iron for Guinness. I know, I do understand, and I do get that where the FAI is involved, they poorly market things. And I've gone to the FAI shop in the Aviva Stadium, and I've looked at it and gone, this is just rubbish. I totally get that. If you buy a
ticket for an Ireland match, you should get a free ticket to a League of Ireland game.
That's an interesting one.
Try and get people. What you have to do when you have something that's not very good and you accept it's not very good is you nearly have to give it away for free, right? And then you build up a kind of, an enjoyment around it where it's a family day or something like that, but it's free. And then you build up an affiliation and a loyalty, and then you can start charging people. Even if the quality isn't better, people will pay blind loyalty. You see,
that's an interesting.
Of all the years I lived in Kilmainham, like within the area, there was literally there was no notifications, there was no signage, there were no posters, for like, I mean literally the whole area. Unless you passed by the stadium, you would not have known there was a match on a Friday night.
That's what I'm saying, and that
was piss poor. And I remember when we were in Gorey.
Would you still go?
The hotel, the whole town had the Wexford colours advertised. They were ready for a match. They let everyone know that they were behind the team. All the local businesses, there would have been no one in that town that would not have known that there was a match on that Sunday. But when it came to a Friday night in Inchicore, there was not one sign to say there's a match on. Please come down and watch it. Absolutely nothing. And that's a discredit. That's the fault of the local team, and I think it's probably a larger issue.
Okay, I get your point on that.
Not doing enough to notify the local population that there is a match on. There's nothing about nothing, Donny. And that's an indictment on them.
I'm not disputing the fact of how poorly advertised it is, but I do put it this way: if Brian Kerr knocked at your door at Kilmainham and had gone, Jay, there's a match on tonight. Do you want to come down? Would you go down?
It depends, Donny. It depends. I can't say. As a football fan, I would definitely think about it.
But that's the other part of the problem. I get it. I totally understand that it's not well advertised, and
But the thing I don't understand the imposition or the obligation on me as an individual football fan, to support a local team. Like the landscape of football has changed, and people would argue, well, we've always, and when I say we, Irish people, that we've always supported English teams, there's cultural reasons for that. But in this day and age, with the internet, with all the football that people can have access to, this whole notion of locality has completely changed, because who am I to say as a parent, if I have a son or a daughter that are into football, that you have to support Man United?
But there must be a logical...
Your local team. They're going to go, right, but Daddy, I like this team. I saw them on TV. They can support whoever they want, Donny.
Yeah, I know. I'm not. I'm not.
That's
I'm not saying that you get your child at gunpoint and say, right, put that Pats jersey on.
No,
Or else.
but I'm saying that same rule applies to adults as well.
Yeah, I
There
know.
is no
But
on me as an adult, as a fan
but
of
do you
football.
not see the logical, practical, pragmatic side to it? Of first of all,
I do.
if people don't get behind it, it's not going to improve, right? And I like Frank's idea, and I do think there has to be some out of the box thinking with the League of Ireland. Absolutely, because nothing else has really worked. But do you not see though that it's never going to improve unless people get behind it? That even if it is €15, whatever, every 2 weeks if they go to a home match or whenever the frequency of home matches are. But it's never going to get better. And surely that would, in the long run, be better for Irish international football, where we can actually have a situation where we can have homegrown players. But people need to invest in it.
It would. But at the same time, Donny, it goes back to what Frank said at the start of the podcast. I was only chatting about it with my girlfriend's dad the other day.
Yeah.
The local GA teams, they do a lot to promote their local teams, and they rely heavily on the community to invest in their local team.
But also they don't pay anybody. They don't pay anybody.
I know, but so when it comes to a question of funds, of distribution of funds, if you're already contributing to a local sports team, how the hell are you going to say right, or how are you going to justify an extra expenditure on a local football team if the local GAR team are already demanding money off you, or you're already giving money? They're not what they're demanding, and you're giving the money on the basis of your free will. There's only so much money to go around. So there is a question of competition in sports. I just ideally,
but then you'll have those. But then you have the very same people go out and spend nearly £100 in a Liverpool kit and a Man United kit.
That's a bit unfair. You can't say that across the board.
Well, I mean, we were in Mayo, and Mayo have a very very good football GAD team. They're always in the final and the semi-finals, and look at the amount of people that I mean, they could have been. They weren't all from Dublin, I'd imagine. Look at all the people wearing Liverpool jerseys. They all came out of woodwork. They're all wearing Liverpool kits, brand new. They cost what? What's it, €70-80 for a Premier League shirt now?
At least nowadays, yeah.
At least, and if you're like me, a full kit wanker, the way I used to be, you'd get all three kits, and there you go. Like you're going to spend money on that, but like you're not going to pop down to your local team and spend €15 on a match. Now, of course, if that's what if you don't want to do that you are more than entitled to do that. Of course, free will, all that. It's not China or soon to be Hong Kong, but I had to get a little bit of politics in. But what I mean is that when people are going to bemoan the standard of Irish football and and they're not getting behind their local side or it just irks me. It really does. It just annoys me a little bit. I just think it's madness that we're pumping money into an already uber cash rich cow, the Premier League, that is now not the English Premier League. It should be the WPL. It should be the fucking World Premier League, because everybody, you got people all over the world. And that's fantastic. But I think, with that, we should be looking at our own going, do you know what? We really need to look at this. And I do accept it's not promoted very well. 100%.
It's not. But like the imposition is on the League of Ireland to offer or entice people to come and watch their brand of football.
I do get that. But also I do think
if that happens, there will be a trickle effect, and I do think people will start to think about going to their local team more and more. But until that does happen, things aren't going to change. And you have to remember, the League of Ireland's only purpose is to promote local football. That's all they do, and they're doing an absolutely terrible job of it. And that's something that we all agree with. That's something that we're not going to contest.
Oh, listen, 100%. League of Ireland used to be competitive up into the 60s. And then Match of the Day came in over to Ireland, and Pipe Telly came in, British Telly came in, and the facilities were absolutely rubbish. And the money was never fully reinvested into the game. It was run by working class people who were intelligent but weren't educated. They didn't know how to keep books. They didn't know anything about investment plans. Where the GAA would always, and the rugby crowd would always have well-educated people who were systematic in their approach and could have visions. The GAA for years, like in the 70s, had a vision that went into the 90s, and one of those was to redevelop the Cusack stand and eventually back into the whole of Croke Park. And the same with the rugby crowd. The FAI's never had this. The League of Ireland's never had this, and there's been lots of cronyism and infighting, and some of the cronyism we're seeing today. So that does have to be a collective, and I do get that.
It's a bit of a chicken and an egg scenario, Sonny.
You love that expression.
Well, no, you could apply it across anything. We could sit here and moan and say, "Oh, why do people listen to that podcast in England, and not support our podcast?" And they could turn around and say, "Well, that's because they have an A-list guest on it, and you don't." And we'd be like, "Well, how can we get an A-list guest on if you won't listen to us?" And there has to be an element of creating a quality product, making it available, making it advertising that it's on, and building that up. And I'm sorry, but the social media presence of the League of Ireland, it seems to me to be very, very poor. I don't know about you guys are probably on social media more.
Twitter, it's quite decent on Twitter, but there are issues where RTE. There doesn't seem to be a collective between RTE and the clubs. And see, the problem is the FAI runs the League of Ireland. That's the first massive issue. And they took over the running in 2007, I believe it was. But there is a heavy League of Ireland presence on Twitter. The audience, I do believe the audience is there to a good base audience. And there has been a swell in interest in the League of Ireland. And if you get on Twitter, I mean, I don't post a lot on Twitter, but it's fascinating when I see all the goals and all that kind of stuff coming on it. And there has been issues where the clubs wouldn't post the goals from a Friday night because apparently they thought, and I just want to just underline that they thought that they couldn't. Because RT had the rights to show the highlights on Soccer Republic, which I believe is on a Monday on Network 2 or RT2. And then it was turned out actually no, RT didn't mind because that wasn't in the contract. So it goes to show you the whole thing is a bit of a shambles, and it does need one clear, direct vision, such as the Premier League was in 1990 when they discussed it, and everybody had to pull together because they had the same issue. So I do get it. It is. We do need something, and I do think it is going to come in. One thing I must ask: an all-Ireland league to North and South. How Frank? How would you feel about that? Would you get behind that? Would you be in support of
that? Yeah. I think that they have to do something, whether that's extending the league or shrinking it down and just getting more quality matches in a kind of round robin to increase the quality of it, and kind of as we said, kind of instead of Dundalk playing UCD every so often, that it's they're playing against teams in much more competitive matches, and that might even kind of help their prospects in Europe and things like that. But absolutely, I think that we have to open up the gate to any other all other ideas, and it's good to, I think Linfield now are the furthest Irish team left in Europe, north or south of the border. I think they're playing Corbag for a place, or whatever that team is called, for a place. And, if they win that, they're into the Champions League group stages, as far as I'm so, we really do. And of course, the exposure that came with that, like the exposure that came for Rovers on the back of their getting into the Europa League. So, yeah, absolutely. Whatever can be done to increase. Now, obviously, we are in a kind of bit of a delicate political moment with Brexit and things, and how things are going to work with the border and things like that. So it's probably probably not the ideal time. But absolutely, we need to open up. And do you know what? In a weird way, maybe kind of big rivalries would increase attendances.
Well, I think it would. I think the first couple of seasons.
Be very careful there.
I think the first few seasons will be marred by crowd trouble and all that. Although, to be fair, the last match when we played Northern Ireland,
wasn't there reports of crowd trouble at oh God, who was playing there? Was there a Shelbourne match?
Wasn't so much crowd trouble. It was there was slight, a couple of dust ups. I think it was. There was I know there was one with Bows and UCD when UCD beat Bows 1-0, and the goalkeeper incited a bit of trouble, and
ridiculous. He got a 10-game ban for that, which is just bizarre.
Yeah. and then his team got 10 goals scored on him.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm going off topic here, but absolutely, like, I mean, you know, even we've talked about this before, if they can somehow strike a deal even with, you know, the teams up north, or, you know, the gold mine would be if they could have some type of Celtic Cup with teams from Scotland as well. So you're getting Celtic and Rangers over because obviously their media profiles would boost the games big time, you know. So they really have to be looking at initiatives. You know, maybe it's putting little concerts on like GAA did for a while, and because they're, you know, they were putting, you know, they were doing double header matches, and maybe that's something to look at. Double header matches and having a little concert on in between. Like, they just really need to kind of think outside the box and make it, you know, a huge, like, more of a family thing. Whether it's letting kids in free, or even, you know, looking at getting more women to attend matches. How can they do that? Open up the pool and just saying, right, we need to get more people through these gates. Even if it's, you know, we have to take a little financial hit on it, the FAI will subsidise that, and eventually we'll build up a bigger pool of people that we can market and get these attendances up and get people involved in the game. They need to really, you know, just stop, because it's just very much, like, as I said, it's just they've been doing what they've been doing for years, and it clearly hasn't worked, because in my lifetime, in any way, you know, League of Ireland hasn't been something that's been hugely you know, in the forefront of my mind. And as I said, that's pretty much, like, you know, I probably 15, 20 friends that are huge football fans, and probably it's only one who was a huge Shells fan years ago, and Dave, who kind of, you know, at different stages is a Pats fan or whatever. Like, you know, he's not a huge Pats fan by his own admission, but he's probably one of the bigger League of Ireland supporters out of us all.
What I would say, when I went to a lot of Pats matches, actually before I emigrated, in fact, ironically, and I remember the crack we used to have in the Camac end, and fun, you know, not the shed end with all the young lads there, but like in the Camac end, it'd be great fun and great crack. And I used to enjoy the League of Ireland, actually, going to the matches, and I love going to football.
They are very enjoyable. The 2 matches I was at, I had a great time.
No, why don't you?
It was very enjoyable.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to see great quality football, but I think when you're at a match,
it was more the people that were there that made it a very enjoyable experience.
Yeah. I do think there is something there. I do think there is.
You have to make it more of an event. Like, look at what they've done with darts. You know, look at what they've done with boxing in the UK. Like, it has to be, you know, maybe you go down the route of just turning it into it, you know, more of an alcohol fueled thing where you have music before and after or something like that. You know what I mean? And then you have Sunday matches where you try and get, you know, more of a family atmosphere. But as I said, it's just chugging along now, and it's not building any momentum. You know, and it's, as you said, RTE doesn't really have a huge appetite for it. That it doesn't seem to in any way. The highlights program, I don't even know when it's on. I barely see it advertised. You know, and I think it only gets about a half an hour slot in anyway. But it's very, very poorly marketed. I don't know how many followers the league has. I don't know how many followers each team has. But the big thing is that I don't know when the Pats match is on until it's over, and I see the highlights of the game on Instagram. And that is cardinal sin. Like, you know, whatever, like, if you look at big budget movies, like, they spend, like, even though they have huge fan bases for Quentin Tarantino films, and even if you never advertise it, probably be a huge box office success. People will be like, when's the next Quentin Tarantino? They still spend huge amounts of money on advertising. So do Man United, as you said, so do brands like Guinness, so do Liverpool. They advertise every single match, even though they don't need to. And that's what has to improve with the League of Ireland. It's very poorly marketed for me. And as Luxie said, like, he lived down the road and didn't know when Pats matches were on until they'd already started. Like, if the stadium was empty, why weren't they knocking on doors, giving away tickets? You know, like, if someone turned up to me genuinely and stopped the 40 bus and said, guys, anyone want a few tickets for this Pats match? And I know you are on your way home. I'd say about you get 5 or 10 people that get off the bus and go in. And, then people might come back or they might not. Or 2 or 3 of them might come back or they might not. But you need to start increasing the exposure of the league before you can increase attendances. Or in order to increase attendances.
No, listen, I do agree with that. Actually, some really good ideas. I really hope someone from Pats is listening. Or I do get it. You have to go out. You have to knock on doors. You have to tell people. You have to sell your product to people. So no, I know I will. I will definitely take those points on board. I do believe there is something there. I was just looking through earlier on. I was looking through the Instagram pages for League of Ireland. I mean, there's one there that has 10,000 followers. League of Ireland Media has 7,836.
Many, like if you go onto Instagram there, Donny, I don't know if your phone has. How many followers does Instagram have? Does Pats have on Instagram?
Right, bear with me. St. Pat's.
I guarantee it's less than 10,000.
It is actually, yeah.
160. Oh, actually, hold on. Sorry, that was.
Oh, it's 8,845.
Yeah. Sorry, I was on a different one there. Well, they all look like you don't know which one's official, do you? So
you've a social media platform going 6 months, Donny, and you've half that. So that's true. That there should, in a nutshell, tell you one of the big problems.
Yeah, I think actually from my point of view, actually, I'd like to do a bit more for the League of Ireland. To be honest, I mean, my platform is more to do with the national team. I am one person, so I've only got so much I can do. But yeah, I do. I just wish somebody would.
Only so much you copy and paste.
Well, Shamrock Rovers has 17.4 thousand followers.
They're in the catchment area of many people live in Tallaght.
Jesus, hundreds of 100. Well, Manchester and hundreds of thousands is a huge place, Tallaght, isn't it?
Yeah. Like that's quite a poor reflection. And considering that they should have followers from rival fans as well, that's very small. Yeah,
Shelburne 3,841. They are literally slap bang in the city centre. I do take a point. Definitely need to do a bit more on this, and hopefully, I mean, some of the ideas that came up with, I do like them. Do have to think outside the box. I do think an All-Ireland League, although one of our friends had a chat with him on the bus when I was over in Ireland a few weeks ago. He wasn't very happy with the idea of an All-Ireland league or an All-Ireland team, funny enough.
I'd agree to both.
I would love both, personally.
Yeah, same here. Well, you look at the Irish model, it's worked very well, so I don't see why that can't be transposed to Irish football.
Yeah, well...
Yeah.
JA from the JA man. Well, anyway, listen, lads, we'll wrap it up there. But thank you very much for your input. A lot of food for thought there, and hopefully somebody's listening, and maybe we'll start thinking outside the box. I do think we do need to stop looking at football as, we need to go back to basics with the League of Ireland. We need to look at it as a club. People who are followers, probably need to go out and do a little bit more. Not followers, but also people at boardroom and official level at each club need to go out and think, right, I'm getting paid X amount of money. I need to go out and do more to get people in to love this club and to love this entity that we have. And hopefully they do. But it does seem a very tired product at the moment. But there does seem a rumbling. And hopefully now, if we do get this new league, the proposals for this new league are actually due in October. So please God, we'll get something, because I think there is a lot of people north and south do really want to see this. They want to see an improvement, because they can either sit looking at each other and watch each other sink, or they can actually go and save each other. That's my take in it. Anyway, but thank you, lads, for this week, and we'll see you again next time.
Get up the yard.